Sambula Vinaka, Fiji, and a warm welcome to Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hits. I'm Louise Kaunisela, your host. The world celebrates International Mother Language Day every year on the 21st of February to promote awareness of linguistic and cultural diversity and to promote multilingualism. First announced by UNESCO in 1999, it was formally recognized by the United Nations General Assembly with the adoption of the UN resolution in 2002. The idea to celebrate International Mother Language Day was the initiative of Bangladesh. The anniversary on the 21st February in 1952 is the day when the people of East Pakistan fought for recognition of the Bangla language. A number of students demonstrating for the recognition of Bangla as one of the state languages of Pakistan were shot at and killed by police. My guest today is the Principal Administrative Officer of the Italki Institute of Language and Culture, Simeone Sevundendre. Welcome to Speak Your Mind.
Navalia Luis, thank you very much. Bulavinaka, everybody, Bulavinaka, listeners and viewers. It's our privilege to be here again after the last time we spoke, which is about a year ago.
Yes, it's a year already. And I know it was the year before last that we did speak on International Mother Language Day. But just my question now for you is, how is the Ministry of Italki Affairs Institute of Language and Culture making sure the Italki language is being protected and preserved?
Oh, thank you for the question. When you use the word protect and preserve, I'll go on the preservation.
No problem.
First of all, a language. When you talk about preservation, you are thinking of specimens in a lab, in a glass display. That's preservation. So in terms of language, we cannot really bottle a language because language evolves. But in terms of preservation, it can be preserved through texts. And I brought here with me samples of preservation of the language. Here, this is an example of a dictionary that was compiled in the late 1800s, which was compiled by the Marist priests.
1800s?
Yes.
That's a long time ago.
It's an English Fijian dictionary.
Oh.
So when you're talking about preservation, the look and the form of the language at one stage, this is one. This is just one of the many books of language being preserved.
Can I have a look? Because I'm actually quite flabbergasted at how a good condition it is from the 1800s.
Yes.
So this is fantastic. You must have put something really good on it.
It has been preserved. While we're just keeping it, continuing the maintenance from our predecessors.
Right.
Here is another preservation. This is a sample of the dictionary of a Waya dialect, Waya in the Yasawa group. This one.
Right.
Yeah. So it was actually a collaboration between a person called Timothy Sayamba and a linguist, Dr. Andrew Pauly.
Wayan language.
Wayan language.
Oh, okay. So
this here is a sample of another dictionary, again from the last century, by Hazelwood. So these are different versions of the language that was preserved, and all of those gave rise to our contemporary monolingual dictionary.
Okay, so all these put together, then
they gave rise to they were the forerunners of the language being preserved and researched, and it has come to this.
That's a really thick book.
It is a dictionary. It's the first ever Fijian dictionary. The entry is in the Wasawabiti, and the definitions are also in the Wasawabiti. So when we're talking about preservation, this is primarily the role of the Italki Institute of Language and Culture. But see, when I say preservation, we can only go as far back as to these 1800 records. And you recall, the Middle Eastern cultures, we have the Egyptian hieroglyphs, which go back thousands of years.
Even further back than the
Further than
1800s,
the-
yeah.
yes.
So that's preservation.
So
I mean,
that's
even the
preservation,
Noble Quran is really,
Yes.
really
Arabic,
right back Arabic, yes.
So this is our attempt to try and document and preserve, because language in Fiji was never written, mostly spoken. Yes.
Okay.
But when when I say it was never written, it was recorded. See, writing and recording are different.
Okay, so I'm taking a guess. Recorded maybe in poetry or something like that?
You got it right.
Yeah, I got it right.
See
Yay.
here, these are examples of some chants of poetry, sung poetry, which is called wudu, recorded from the mid-70s. And these are poems of wudu that are sung as duets, that are sung in a group. It's not. It may sound like a meke chant, but meke means choreography, movement. But here are stories about fishing expeditions, weather, historical information. They're preserved through a collaboration with our sister organization in Seoul, Korea, ICCAP, Intangible Cultural Heritage Asia Pacific.
Yes.
And with the Fiji Museum. We collaborated in documenting these chants, these sung poetry, this wudu. That's the performance aspect. There's the woven aspect of recording. See here, this is an example of a traditional craft from the people of Nasengai in Kandavu.
Okay.
And if you look carefully, you see different colors. These different colors are the different weaves. And the different weaves tell a story. So I'll illustrate with the one in green here.
Yes, please.
That weave is called Verevakayale. For the people in Nasengai in Kandavu, they weave their relationship with the people of Yale in Kandavu. Nasengai is on one side, in one district. Yale is on another district.
Okay, we'll have to come back to that. My friend Simeone on Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hits. We'll be back shortly for more. We're back on Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hits. Thank you for your good company. My guest in the studio today is from the Italki Affairs, and he is the Principal Administrative Officer of the Italki Institute of Language and Culture, Simeone Sevungendre. Now, very interesting, how you actually, just tell us so in simple words of, how our Italki culture has been preserved. And you spoke about you have it on sounds and you have it on a dictionary. And then we left off with the weaving, the craft. So you said that first line was, the connection.
They weave stories. They weave their history.
So they can just actually look at that and then they can tell the
It's
story?
a way of them remembering their relationship with the people who wove this, the people of Nasengai. Their relationship with the people of Yale is actually woven. And there's that story is their traditional rivalry.
Oh, okay.
And
so it's a rivalry. I thought they were like good friends or something. in Kandavu?
Fact, yes, in Kandavu, the story goes whenever this lalakai. By the way, this is called a lalakai.
Okay.
In the Kandavu dialect, it's called mbeha. Imagine a tray to serve baked dried food. Was out the former tray before we had glass, etc.
Yeah.
This is the serving
traditional tray.
platter. So this weave here, when it's being woven by the people or the women of Nasengai, if a person from Niale happens to come into their midst as they're weaving, it will confuse the weave. That's how strong the mana is between these two rival clans.
Oh, but it's a funny thing because my father's mother is actually from Yale in, they call it Raki Laila, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have never met her because she actually died before I could meet her. So that's quite amazing.
Down the ages, as a way of keeping the memory, it is woven. or it is sung in a chant.
Right.
So our task is still with the role of our institute is to capture these memories, capture these stories. There's the written one, there's the sung one, there's the woven one. So just to give an example to our listeners and viewers today.
Yes, and the thing is, you said these are from the 1800s, but with the poetry or the singing that you've said, or the weaving goes back far back.
Yes. So, or written-wise, text-wise, we may go as far as 1800s, but in terms of the sung and the performance aspect of memory, it's older than that. It goes way back to the 1600s. There are many which have been lost.
Oh, dear.
But when we analyze the message, the lyrics,
Similar.
it talks about old relationship, events that were never recorded, but are recorded in the singing, in the chant, and in the weaving.
So do people actually still sing these chants?
Unfortunately not.
Oh, I thought maybe they would still sing the chants.
No. In Kandavu, they sing their various chants.
Okay.
But in the rest of Fiji, it's becoming a rarity.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, maybe I would love to listen to something like that. Is that in CD form?
This is in CD form.
So what is actually on it?
I think we've grasped at modernization too quickly, and in the process we've lost what is our essence. So we've had a proliferation of all kinds of music composition and singing. I'm not against it, but in the process we let go of these stories that are preserved through the chants. So it's a give and take. It's so that's one of the reasons. That's there's a more emphasis, a preference towards the modern instruments, the modern style of singing.
Yeah.
These styles of singing of chants, they don't comply with the Western major and minor scales and notes. They run on a different.
Oh, seriously? So totally different notes?
Totally different kind of sound.
I'm actually interested to listen now. Maybe you have to send me something to listen to.
Thank you, Luis, because the interest, we just capture, but the interest has to come from the people.
Exactly.
If they want to reconnect with their sounds, their stories through the sung poetry, that is where we come in. We preserve and keep, and it's the onus is on them. If they would like to draw from, be inspired from older sounds, etc. That's why we, the institute, exists.
Oh, well, thank you very much. That is so interesting, Simeone. So that is on the protection and preservation, right? Thank you so much. So shall we move on to the next question? When was the Italki language known to be first spoken?
Oh, that question is very philosophical, but I have here the history of the Fijian language, a research dissertation that came out of Dr. Paul Garrett's research.
Okay.
And he is the authority on the history of the Fijian language, connecting it to the Tongan, the Samoan languages. And according to one of the chapters he's written, he said that 1000 BC, the Fijian Italki language took its shape in the current form, 1000 BC.
That's before Christ.
So, but the language, the older form, existed in a different language changes.
Yes.
So 1000, 2000 BC, the Italki language was still spoken, but it took a different color, different sound, different vocabulary. And according to the research, it puts it at the estimate by 1000 BC, Fiji, Tonga and Samoa had been settled, and the geographic isolation allowed the language, the Italki language, to then morph and become
what it is today.
What it is today. So when you ask, when was it first spoken? It goes way, way back in time to even 5000 BC. The older, what they call as the proto or the Austronesian languages.
Oh.
It's a guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there will be many people who would know how to speak it. Yeah, because it's morphed.
It's morphed. It is evolved.
Evolved. So, okay. Then, so you've already answered about when the Italki language was first printed and published, obviously. So, but how many dialects are there in the Italki language?
Again, According to the documents, the research by Dr. Paul Garrity, who builds on works by other linguists, Professor Albert Schultz, Professor Andrew Polly, and all the linguists who paved the way, they put it at around 200 to 300 dialects. Again, see, if you imagine a ruler, the continuum, the dialects have slight changes as you go up the continuum, which is why there's no clear demarcation as to this is where one begins, this is where one ends. There is a lot of sharing in vocabulary and sound and intonation, but he puts it roughly at 300. They put it at 300. It could be more, it could be less. But in terms of when it was first in print, it was in print first time in the 1840s. By the missionary Reverend David Cargill.
Okay, yes, I've heard of him.
He actually wrote down the Lord's Prayer in the Lakemba dialect.
Oh, Our Father in Heaven.
Our Father in Heaven. But we now understand it today as Tamaiki Mamimilamalangi. And it was similar also.
So how did he say it?
Tameki Mamimilamalangi me pakaroro takeda muni meado munufinangalo me pakasava bura. So there was a lot of borrowing from Tongan because David Cargill and William Cross, they were in Tonga before they came to Fiji.
Yeah, so the connection is there.
There is a connection.
I suppose there's a connection in every language in the world. After all, we started from one language, didn't we?
Yes.
And we morphed, coming to right across the world.
Yes.
That's why sometimes you hear languages, it's similar or familiar.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
On Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hits. We'll be back in a moment. This is Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits, the only classic hit station in the country, our live radio talkback show. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can call 3220906 or 7732906. Now, my guest is from the Italki Affairs, and he is the Principal Administrative Officer of the Italki Institute of Language and Culture, Simeone Sevundrendre. So we left off with you saying that we have about 300 or more dialects.
Yes.
That's a lot.
But there's a standard one.
Okay.
That's spoken. It was not made standard because it's better. It's just because it through the influence of the missionaries and the exposure to text become printed, which is now spoken widely. It's the language of the lingua franca, so to speak. It's when the news is announced in the Toki language, they use that. So when we're talking about preservation of language, I'd like to also show how language grows, and the language has to accommodate the changes. So here we have, this is the Constitution of Fiji in English. And this is the Toki translation.
Yes.
So the language has come a long way. From the spoken to the chanting to the woven, it's now available in the Toki and the Constitution.
So easily available in all, even in Hindi as well.
Yes, it's also available in Hindi. Here I have, this is a government document. It's called the Green Growth Framework. Because of climate change and all the issues relating to climate today, this is the translation.
Okay.
The Green Growth Framework. This is English.
Yeah.
The language needed to grow, to evolve in order to address contemporary issues.
Okay.
Again, this is one level 2 about climate change. Still on climate change.
Yeah.
This is our translation of the glossary, climate change glossary, acidification, resilience, etc. We created a glossary of some very funny sounding terms, but when it started off, it'll start off initially as unusual and not familiar to the ear, but that's how language grows and is preserved in these works. Then we have the ones from this is the Book of Mormon.
Whoa.
In the Italki language. And this is the same Bible, but the standard that's used maybe in the Methodist and Orthodox churches.
Yeah.
And this is a sample miniature of the Bible, the New Testament, by the Watchtower.
Right, 7 days.
No, the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Sorry, Jehovah's Witness. Okay.
So what I'm saying is the language is growing. So it's growing in the secular. It's also growing in the faith-based institutions, faith-based organizations. Then there are individual publications. This is by the late Ratu Semisirwa Kula. He wrote a book about culture, Nabula Wakawanua. This was his first publication. And after his death, he also, they released one, Nabiwa Kanya Navanua. He talks about the relationship and the connection between the people of Nassau Toka and Tailebu and the people of Nassau Toka and how they're connected with Nitasiri, all the tribes going back. It's in the Toki language.
Wow. So makes interesting reading, I'm sure.
There's some more.
Yeah.
These are our newsletters, which are, see, this is contemporary. So I've sort of framed it in such a way that when we preserve language, we preserve the very old, the unwritten, the sung, the woven, the performed, and to our contemporary newsletters, which are quarterly, sent to every primary school. We try to send it to most primary schools, but it talks about culture, it talks about climate change, it talks about herbal medicine, etc. Even our comic of our legends, our indigenous version of Once Upon a Time, but the version we have is Tiko Tiko Kina and Donango na Macau, Once Upon a Time. This is just an example.
So I'm sure the children must really
they
enjoy
love it.
that.
They just run
part
short of copies.
School
yes,
through,
yes.
Oh, that's nice. So you're teaching them, their culture and tradition.
We create this and we let the public choose, and sometimes also we'll work with the Ministry of Education, the curriculum. Yeah,
well, that was something I wanted to ask as well. What is the progress of the work with the curriculum advisory services and the Ministry of Education for teaching different languages in school?
Our role is to provide resources for the Toki language. For availability for resources for the curriculum and also for teachers and also for students. We don't push it and shove it down their throat and say, take this. We just provide the resources.
All right.
Imagine us like a well when people are thirsty and then they come and they draw water for their satisfaction. So that's mostly our role, providing resources. Yeah,
it would be good too if in school, children would be encouraged to learn different languages,
I think that's way
apart from your mother tongue,
yes.
Because, we were all brought up in the country together, everyone is Fijian, so, we could learn Chinese even, we could learn any other language.
You can learn Chinese, you can learn Hindi, but we emphasize learn what's yours first.
Okay.
If you're Chinese, well, speak your Mandarin or your Cantonese Chinese.
Yeah, well, obviously you have to. You should learn your mother tongue. Yes, that is why International Mother Language Day is
But see,
celebrated.
In Fiji, we have this unique opportunity because we all are exposed to the three languages.
That's true.
Hindi, Italki, and English. Yeah. In fact, I grew up learning and absorbing Hindi. Fiji Bat, the Fiji Hindi.
The Fiji Hindi. How are you?
I can understand. I grew up with it. So we in Fiji, we have this unique position to strengthen these three: Posawawiti, Fiji Bat, and English.
True.
And imagine, if a child, we emphasize this, there'll be less walls, there'll be more bridges because language actually connects, languages bridges, and the misunderstanding diminishes because we can understand.
Yeah.
If we're just confined to just one language, we are at a disadvantage. Here in Fiji, we are privileged. We have not really maximized this position to actually develop the trilingual.
So you would say that, my question, how do you think cultural and linguistic diversity is key for sustainable and peaceful societies? We already have it.
We've yet to fully develop and maximize, but it's there.
Yeah.
Our three languages. And if you throw in Rotuman, that's fourth. And
Yeah,
you throw in the
41.
Banaban language, that's fifth.
Chinese.
And the Chinese, that's six. And imagine this rich diversity. It's there, but
We need to tap into it.
Yes, we need to tap into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always amazed, when I see, someone with a different cultural background. I mean, we're all Fijians, but then, speaking each other's language, sometimes you just close your eyes and you would not know,
There are instances where you go into the market and you see an Indo-Fijian and a Chinese rattling away in the Toke language. Yes, the market version, but at least they're beginning to communicate.
So that's communication right there and then.
And imagine if this is emphasized in the primary school level, where we grew up, where you're actually taught.
Yes.
Wasawabiti in English and Hindi.
True. I mean, a great advantage, but like you said, it still needs to be tapped into. Well, I mean, with now computer, Google and all that, it makes it even easier. On Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hits. We'll be back soon. Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits. I'm Louise Kaunisela, your host, and my guest from the Italki Affairs. And he is, of course, the Principal Administrative Officer of the Italki Institute of Language and Culture, Simeone Sevundrendre. And we are concentrating on International Mother Language Day, which is celebrated every year on the 21st of February. I believe there are some 370 million indigenous people, and their languages account for the majority of the approximately 7,000 living languages on Earth. And it's been said more than half of the world's languages could become extinct by 2100. So, well, I'm not sure about if you agree with that, Simeone, but in comparison to other languages, maybe you like to share with us what you have there.
Yes, thank you very much. With due respect, this is our vulnerability of the Toki language and the Pacific languages in the world. So when you look in the native speakers of Mandarin Chinese, there are 1.3 billion.
Ooh, that's a lot. Yeah.
Our population in Fiji, we have not even reached a million.
That's true.
And there are 460 million native speakers of Espanol, Spanish.
Gee.
There are 317 million native speakers of English. There are 341 million native speakers of Hindi, Shuddh Hindi. There are 315 million native speakers of Arabic. There are 228 million native speakers of Bengali. Do you know how many speakers of Italki on the world scale? 0.00006. 4 zeros after that decimal point, and then you have the number 6. We're not even 0.5% on the world scale. And comparing it to 379 million native English speakers, 460 million speakers of Spanish, 1.3 billion of Mandarin. This is not even a drop. This is it's like a whiff, just a cloud. It's a very, very vulnerable, can just disappear overnight which is why when you go with you, and I'm thankful for you for that, when we talk about International Mother Language Day, our situation in Fiji is very, very precarious linguistically.
Yeah.
Yes, we all speak English, but if we forget to speak our Italki language, no one in England or Spain or Arabia or China would care to speak it because they have theirs.
Yeah, but one thing, Bula is universal, isn't it?
Yes, Bula is universal.
I mean, somehow, like wherever you go in the world, they somehow know Bula.
They know Bula.
That's quite amazing to me, even.
But the situation, the risk of not only of our Toki language, of our Pacific languages, is very, 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 because our numbers are small.
Okay, so what do you think needs to be done in order that our language just doesn't disappear?
There needs to be more in terms of publication, literature. There needs to be more on the performing arts, on the heritage arts, because these are the fancy ways of keeping the language alive. They are appealing. The fashion, using describing fashion, using the language in the arts, the performing arts, the heritage arts, the culinary arts. And there's also, when the Italki diaspora, who are in England and Australia and New Zealand and America, they leave Fiji, it's very easy for them to adopt the language of the country they've resided in.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a challenge.
It is a challenge, but I actually really like it when someone goes, but it all depends on who they're brought up with to keep the language alive, don't you think? Because I had an Australian friend, she was there since she was like 2 years old. I think I told you last time, but she's from Nandronga, but she speaks the Nandronga dialect perfectly.
Those are the success stories we need to
have
clone
more
and have more. Those who take the pride of their language, their dialect with them, no matter which part of the world. Our challenge, as in Fiji, we are so already small, and there are 0.00006 of us speaking it on the world scale. And when our people go abroad, they discard it and speak the 375 million, adding to the 375 million.
When they already have.
They already have. So I'm creating this awareness, this flag.
Yeah.
If we don't speak it, who will speak it?
Yeah.
If we don't speak it to our children, and in 2021, 20 years' time, 50 years' time, it disappears, because language must be spoken. I mean, we can put it in books, but it was never meant to be in books.
It's supposed to practice it.
It's supposed to be spoken.
Yeah.
And if the people, the owners of the Italki language, Wasavaviti, do not speak it to their children, who else will speak it? Do you think the people in Europe will, they are not speaking Wasavaviti, let us speak it? No, it's ours. We have to take that ownership. And be more vigorous. We may not be able to print books, but we are all given that equal measure of speech. What are we doing with it? What are we doing about it? Speaking. We don't speak it. And when I say we, I'm in Suva.
In Fiji, in our country. We'll have to come back to that. That's something we need to cover more on Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hits. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits. I hope you're enjoying the program. My guest is from the Italki Affairs, and he is the Principal Administrative Officer of the Italki Institute of Language and Culture, Simeone Sevundrendre. And we are also covering International Mother Language Day, which is celebrated every year on the 21st of Feb. And interestingly enough, Simeone, you spoke about how we need to keep our language alive. I mean, you've given us the comparison of,
on the world scale.
Yeah, on the world scale, how little.
We're not even a drop.
Not even a drop.
We just whiff.
Oh, whiff. Oh, dear. So, I mean, for instance, we do have people in the country who actually don't know how to speak proper Italki, and they are Italkis?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the ongoing challenge. I mean, we can only lay the cards on the table. The onus is on them to choose. For many of us, I speak English fluently, but I'm still proud of my Wasavaviti.
Yeah.
Because in the Wasavaviti are embedded wisdom, nuggets of truth, nuggets of wisdom that reflect how close and intimate our ancestors were with the environment.
Yeah, okay, we need to make the relation with climate change.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
So our ancestors, they were already protecting the planet before, humans started destroying it.
Yes, in hindsight, the traditional ways of fishing, the traditional ways of farming are now regarded as environment friendly.
There you go.
But they were just, it was it was natural for them
Right.
to develop farming techniques. There's this type of ndalo farming which is now not practiced in Fiji. It is called ndalo wudi, na laua, na solove, tambawai. These are, sometimes we see terrace farming in Southeast Asia. Our version in Fiji is ndalo.
Yeah.
The terrace farming of this version, this species of ndalo that is planted in water.
Okay.
But the thing is, the catch is the species of ndalo, the tambawai, the ndalo wudi, the ndalo lawa, the ndalo solobe, they require tribal effort because it is painstaking. It requires the effort of everyone to prepare the field. And as they prepare the field up the hills, preparing the terraces, it actually conserves the environment, the land.
Okay.
People are eating. When this ndalo matures, it feeds the clan for months and months. But it's a lot of effort.
Okay.
But when the people eat, the upside to it is the ndalo, the planting technique keeps the land, preserves the land, conserves the land. It does not take away compared to the hybrid, quick turnaround.
Right.
It matures, but all for cash at the expense of the environment, the land.
Yes.
So when we're talking about climate change, there's old wisdom in the way the crafts are made, in the way the
trees are cut
cooking, the traditional culinary, the traditional architecture that resonate, that keep in mind, that respect the land, the environment. See, there are traditional architecture. When you talk about architecture, namure, there are certain trees that are used for posts, but they are only cut down at certain times of the year. That's conservation.
True.
They're not just cut, let's go cut it on. No. They wait for the moon, the time and the season to be right, and then they cut. But then they don't cut any time of the day. They wait for the right time at night to cut, because the tree will not develop rot. But see, these are growth rings, but they knew it already. The growth ring is completed when there's no moon, so the cycle is closed. The growth ring is completed. So when that particular tree is cut for post, it lasts.
See, that's wisdom right there and then.
That the trick is capturing this and using it and bringing it today, so that we have villages being relocated because of climate change, because of the cyclones, because of the rise in sea level.
Right.
But there are traditional ways in the planting, in the preservation of land that doesn't cost money. They were working 500 years ago. So when we're talking about climate change, these are our own indigenous methods.
So you have these indigenous methods at the Italki affairs that people can learn about?
All the villages. They just forgotten the memory. That's the trick. That's the challenge. That's the issue.
Okay.
Because we always take it upon themselves.
Westernized.
The grass is always greener on the other side. That thing where we think that is better, but we forget this one is older and therefore better. The Nigerian author Chinua Achebe, he mentioned, if a knowledge gathers strength over centuries, it must be good. You don't turn it off overnight. And that's our challenge when it comes to wisdom of the Italki in terms of climate change adaptation and mitigation. Reconnecting with these techniques, these strategies, these approaches that preserve kinship, that preserve the land.
Yeah.
And in the process, it keeps the land. And it doesn't cost money, but it keeps the land. It's our way of mitigating climate change in a small way.
So I suppose this knowledge is still in some villages, obviously, for people who are actually living in the village.
Again, most of that knowledge is with the 80-year-old who've gone to the grave because we've been subjected, we've become victims of NCDs, the high blood pressure.
When we shouldn't be.
Yes, we have lots of fresh vegetables, fresh food, But again, we don't value it. The grass is always greener on the other side. We like the flour, we like the noodles, we like all that at the expense of our health. And when these octogenarians die out, they take this knowledge with them to the grave. And then here we are grappling, trying to find our way through. So what I'm talking about, yes, we are talking about language, but it has health, it has environment ramifications.
Yes.
Yes, it has a lot of underpinnings in many areas in our daily life. So for the Italki language, it has measures that can begin, that's the key word, begin to address health issues, begin to address climate mitigation, etc., adaptation, begin to address social deviation, crime, begin to address. There are issues in the language. We have not really tapped into it. So I'm thankful that you brought me here to just begin to
create the awareness that if we don't watch out, we're going to lose all this wonderful knowledge.
We will not only lose, we will become corrupt and we will become poor shells of our former selves.
Yes. So just one last message from you, my friend, to the Italki on their culture and their language before we finish off.
Speak it. Speak it. Speak it. Own it. Because if we don't speak it, no one else from abroad will care to speak it.
That's true. Thank you so much. I speak broken Italki. Is that all right?
That's the beginning. That's a start.
Beginning,
That's a start.
Okay. Well, thank you. I have to improve, though. On Speak Your Mind, I hope you enjoyed the program. Until next week, Nisamo Demanda. Look after yourself and each other. And Simeone Sivundrendre, as usual, it's always been wonderful talking to you. My guest from the Italki Affairs, the Principal Administrative Officer of the Italki Institute of Language and Culture, Simeone Vinaka.